We say good morning to our pal Ross Tucker. He's the host of the Ross Tucker podcast. You can follow him on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. What's up, Ross? Good morning.
What's up, fellas? I got a lot to say to you people. I'm fired up. How you doing?
I'm sure you do.
I bet you do.
And we're going to hit on futurefans.com toward the end of the interview. We know you want to talk about that. But we have to start with the Tush Push at Ross Tucker NFL. You have a pinned tweet. The Tush Push survives, but apparently you have mixed emotions about it. Do you want to tell the audience why you have mixed feelings about the Tush Push and it surviving in the league meetings yesterday?
Yeah, so you guys know I do the Eagles preseason games, and I do, like a couple of videos or whatever for them a week during the season. So I do some work for the team as a result, and really because of where I grew up and where we live. My family's Eagles fans, all of my friends are Eagles fans, all that stuff. I'm tired of the whining and crying. I'm sick of it. And part of me just wanted them to ban it because the Eagles would. Here's the two things that I don't think people understand. First of all, the secret sauce, more than anything else, is the left guard Landon Dickerson and the left tackle Jordan Mailata. I mean, you guys know I've been around a lot of big dudes. My first starts were next to Flozell, the Hotel Adams for the Cowboys.
I remember that name. He was huge.
I know. I started a bunch of games next to Big Mike Williams.
Yeah.
Remember that kid from Texas?
Yep.
He came to training camp one year at 408. Okay, so I've been around big guys.
Yeah.
And Mailata is legit 6'8", 380. Landon Dickerson's 6'6", maybe 360. These guys are movers of men. And so the first point I would make is even if they just ran the conventional quarterback sneak, they would still have a tremendous amount of success. But the thing that I thought was especially dumb about all of this that went on the last couple of days, it's not a player safety issue. I don't even think it's that much that the Eagles are so successful with it. I think most people just don't like the way it looks. It just looks like a pile of guys. It doesn't look like they're actually scheming anything, and they don't like it. I get that. The way this was written would have changed nothing. I reached out to multiple officiating contacts yesterday. The Eagles still could have had two guys lined up next to Hurts, and instead of pushing Hurts, they would just push the center and guard forward.
Right.
Or they could have just done wedge blocking like you do on a quarterback sneak, but not actually put their hands on Hurts. My point would be, guys, the Eagles would have read the letter of the law, and it would have stylistically looked very similar anyway, to the point where it would have felt like the NFL had accomplished very little other than not actually being able to push the guy from behind. So those are the two reasons that there was part of me that wanted it to be banned. And also I'm sick of the whining. I'm sick of talking about it. It's ridiculous the amount of conversation that we have put into it. But I guess since it's such a big player safety issue, I guess the other 22 teams that voted against it can't use it this year, right? They can't have their guys do the Tush Push or anything like it because they're so worried about the safety of their players.
Yeah.
I was sick of the whining too, Ross. On this show, I think I might have been the only one who was against banning it. Because my point is, stop the play. The Chiefs were able to stop the play when the Bills were running it in the AFC Championship. That helped them get to the Super Bowl.
And my thing is this. Forget even stopping the play. Let's say you think it's unstoppable. You can't stop it. Okay. Run it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Run it yourself. That's the thing that blows my mind away. Nothing is preventing or stopping anyone else from doing the exact same thing and having the success that the Eagles have had. Here's why they can't do it. Number one, they don't have Landon Dickerson and Mailata, and to some extent Hurts with how strong he is. And then they don't really teach it the same way as the Eagles. They don't have the acumen. I'm not going to get into it, but it's the second surge that does it. It's Mailata and Dickerson's technique. People don't understand what those guys are doing to get that second surge and that wave. So there is skill involved. There's obviously skill involved. Otherwise, every other team would be doing it.
But obviously the Eagles have one of the biggest and strongest lines in the league, Ross, but all across the league, the left guard and left tackle, they're monsters on every team. So they should be able to.
Like those guys.
No, I understand.
Like those guys.
No, I understand they're not 6'8", but they're still big, strong dudes, man. They can still push. Those guys are strong.
They still should be able to do it.
Yes.
But I will just tell you, for Washington, right? Nick Allegretti, he's a grinder. Mm-hmm. He's not Landon Dickerson. And Laramie is a really good pass protector. He's not Mailata. I mean, those are guys, those are physical phenoms in the prime of their careers right now. But to your point, those guys are good enough to do it. They stop their feet. They don't understand the technique as well as the Eagles do. There is technique to it, despite what some people will tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see what the Commanders are doing to try to combat it. I mean, during the offseason, they gave a pretty good contract to Javon Kinlaw as Jonathan Allen departs to Minnesota, and they signed a guy like Eddie Goldman to help them on the interior as well, who goes like 325, maybe 330. Like, those guys are being brought in, not specifically to stop the tush push, but I would guess there's a big emphasis on that because they have to face the Eagles twice a season.
Well, correct, but also, with everybody playing these two deep safety looks, teams, the running game's kind of back. Mm-hmm. Teams are running it more and more. If you look at the success that Derrick Henry had, obviously Saquon, Josh Jacobs, running game is a major, major part of this thing again. So it makes sense to have some D tackles that can stop the run. Plus, I think people just saw during the playoffs, here's how I look at it. I had somebody explain this to me that works for a team, not the Eagles, by the way. You have two ways to win a Super Bowl, really. You either have an elite quarterback, right? So think Mahomes, Josh Allen, whatever. Or you have a top 5 O-line, D-line, and a good enough quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the Eagles are. I do not think Jalen Hurts is an elite player. And, of course, when I say that in Philadelphia, they get all mad at me. But I think that they have top 5 easily, O-line and D-line. And then they have good players around them also. And then they have a good quarterback, right? Yep. But it's really hard to get that elite quarterback, which you guys don't have to worry about because you got it. So if you can't get that one elite guy, you really have to be top 5 O-line, D-line, and just keep investing in those position groups until you are.
Where would you rank personally Jaden amongst, like you mentioned, Mahomes, Josh Allen, guys like Lamar Jackson?
Or Burrow, yeah.
I have to pull it up, but I think by the end of last year, I think I had him like 5th. Mm-hmm. I think
sounds
off the
about
top
right.
of my head,
yeah.
I had, of course, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow. I think those guys are like the unquestioned top 4, I would say. But I think Jaden Daniels might already be the next guy. I mean, I'm sure there's other people that can make an argument for some other guys, but he's not just really, really good, but he's clutch. He plays his best when it matters the most. And it was only his first year, and I don't feel like he was surrounded with some like loaded team, right? We've seen other teams, we've seen other guys go to conference championship games as rookies. I can remember Sean King with the Bucks back in like 99 maybe, or a guy like Ben Roethlisberger with the Steelers. Those teams were loaded, dude. Loaded. Nobody looks at the Commanders last year and thought they were loaded. No. We probably did this when I talked to you guys before the NFC Championship game. There was, 3 to 5 guys for Washington, maybe, that would start for the Eagles. That is a lot to overcome. That is hard. However, I think based on how they played last year, quarterback would be one of them or would have been one of them. Now, Hurts played really good those last 2 games. But the Commanders, I think, have closed the gap a little bit this year. The Eagles lost some guys and the Commanders gained some guys. I don't know if they've closed it enough. I still think if they played 10 times, I don't know, the Eagles win 7, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, something like that. But that's not really what matters. What matters would be who wins that one in January if they do face off there. But I think they've added guys and gotten better at a couple spots. And the Eagles obviously lost several guys that really helped them the last couple of years.
Last question about the push, the meeting over there in Minnesota, but just kind of reading what went down when Laurie was talking. He apparently spoke for an hour. I know Jason Kelsey spoke, but then some of the words that and phrases that Laurie used pissed off Troy Vincent, and I can't really say what he said, but did you talk to anybody that were in the meetings, and what did you think of that back and forth between Laurie and especially Vincent?
I did not talk to anybody that was in the meetings. I read the same reports you did,
yeah,
and I just find the dynamic interesting because Troy played for Jeffrey Lurie and the Eagles for 8 years,
right,
96 to 03. Then he came to Buffalo and played with me. So it's interesting to me that Troy was the one that reportedly, called him out or told him it was inappropriate. That's a, as a former player, like I just pictured that dynamic, right? Like I
right.
can't imagine me saying to Jerry Jones or Daniel Snyder or whoever, like, hey, that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Don't say that. Like that would be tough for me.
And apparently he said that because there were women in the meetings as well. If it was all males, I don't know if he would have said it, if he would have stepped up, but that's why he brought that up anyway.
Yeah.
So just want to get your
how do you see the NFC East? Do you see Dallas getting back in the mix? The Giants seem much improved too. We already talked about the Commanders maybe closing the gap a little bit on Philly.
Yeah, I don't think it really changed very much. I mean, I think it's Eagles, Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. I think the guys for the Giants are probably as good as fired. I mean, unless Jackson Dart ends up in the second half of the year being, something I don't think he is. I think those guys are as good as gone. Because here's the thing. You guys have probably talked about it. The Giants have the toughest schedule in the NFL this year. The single toughest schedule in the NFL. And in general, the NFC East has a brutal schedule. I mean, having to play the NFC North, having to play the AFC West.
Yep.
That's one reason why I'm glad that they didn't vote in the Lions' idea of just having playoff seeding based on overall record. That's super dumb. I mean, think about this. We know that the who you play rotates by division every year, right? There is no way that, I'm just making this up, but that the Packers should be seeded higher than the Commanders because they have a better record if the Packers had to play the NFC South and the AFC South compared to, the Commanders having to play these much tougher divisions. The schedule is not nearly equitable. It's pretty equitable within division. There's only 3 games that are different, and it's based on your record the year before. But it's not equitable from division to division at all because you're rotating, and sometimes you get lucky and you play like the NFC South and AFC South.
Right.
Neither one of which has really any good teams.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about it earlier, Ross, that the last 4 games for Washington are all division games. So the final month is Giants on the road, Philly, Dallas at home, and then at Philly. That's kind of crazy that, that division's coming down to the last month.
It's definitely crazy. And I spoke to Dan Quinn, I guess it was that last week when the schedule came out, and he said he's done it before. I don't love it stylistically, that it's 2 out of the last 3. They just played the NFC Championship game, and there's some animosity between those teams, the whole tush push thing. I kind of think it would have been cool if the Commanders and Eagles played earlier in the year. But that being said, hopefully and maybe by the time we get, to the end of the year, we'll all be pumped that they play each other 2 out of the last 3 games. But here's the thing I think about. It's very possible that they would play each other the next week in the playoffs.
Right.
So, like, the idea of 2 teams playing against each other 3 times in 4 weeks, to me, is super dumb.
We're joined by Ross Tucker. Follow him on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. So tell our listeners about futurefans.com, the best way to get kids to love and understand the great sport of football.
Oh, my gosh. So here's what's crazy. We talk all the time about how the Commanders fan base, the Washington, D.C. football fan base, like we've never seen anything erode like it did over the last 20 years. We always talk about that.
Sure.
I am so pumped for you guys and everybody listening about how it's coming back. I've actually talked about futurefans.com a couple times. One was with Grant. I can't remember the other one. And it's amazing how many people went to futurefans.com and bought this storybook-led activity box. So here's the deal, right? Everybody listening wants their kids to get off their iPad and actually watch the game with them, especially now that you have Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are good again. That's easier said than done. I mean, maybe it's because I travel every weekend, but I've done a pretty crappy job with my girls. I took them to the Super Bowl, and they were asking so many questions. I thought, wow, I have failed. I mean, I have really failed. And when I am home, they don't want to watch the game with me. I mean, their dad played in the NFL. I'm a broadcaster. They don't want to sit there and watch the game with me. These guys from futurefans.com, they've cracked the code. It's like you read this book, and it explains like how a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old will understand it, how the downs work, and then you do like a beanbag toss game, and they get it. The guys that started it are actually Bengals fans, and a few years ago when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, they were trying to get their kids to watch it, and they're like, oh, I'll watch it next year. And no, you don't understand. This is never going to happen again.
Right.
You need to sit on the couch and watch it with me now. So they're like, we got to do something so that little kids actually understand. So if you're out there, any dad, grandpa, anybody really, probably a great Father's Day gift to yourself to actually have it so that your son or daughter or your niece, nephew will actually watch the Commanders games. You think about how cool that would be if they would sit there and watch it with you. Then you have that for the rest of your life. Then you have like a lifelong buddy to watch the games and have that bonding and get them off their iPad or whatever. It's called futurefans.com. Highly recommend it. For whatever reason, this is maybe as good of an indicator as any, guys, as to how hot DC football is. For whatever reason, more people are buying this in the DMV than anywhere else. Like that shows you
That's
how
awesome.
fired up people are and how much they want their kids to be part of this with them because they haven't been doing this for 30 years or however long it's been. It's called futurefans.com. I think if you go right now and just throw your email in, you get a 20% discount, but it's only $60 anyway. Futurefans.com.
Very good. Ross, we always appreciate the time, man. We'll have to talk to you again soon. That's Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker podcast. You can follow him at Ross Tucker NFL. Thanks again, buddy.
Absolutely. See you guys.
All right, Ross.
Talk to you again soon. Don't forget, coming up at 8 o'clock, we'll be joined by Mark Ein. He's part of the Commanders ownership group. He's promoting the 2025 Mubadala City DC Open tennis event. That's coming up at 8 o'clock here on The Fan.